So we have like strong researchers in medicine and then engineering department. And then, so Howard is also computer scientist. So as you know, artificial intelligence. So now we have this different new tools. So we know we can kind of compute your brain age. So we have all chronological age. So like how far you were in this, on the earth. But we can estimate your age of the brain based on the this MRT images. So Howard, can you tell us more about brain age and then what kind of factors affect how look or how old your brain?
Thank you. Again, the questions are all about things I'm interested in, so this is very fun. Thank you. A brain age, I like to say it's so interesting because when we look at Alzheimer's disease, we've all said, God, what's going on? What's the clue to why people get it? And the biggest risk factor is age. So there's something about age. And we're like, well, what is it? Is it number of days since you've been born? Probably not that. It's probably something else that happens, and that happens differently and is associated with how many days since you were born, And so probably what it is something about the structure of the brain, And so you can, a radiologist can do that, and they can look at the structure of the brain and say, oh, that's an older looking brain, that's a younger looking brain, and say, really, it's the brain age, not how many days since you were born, that's the factor in your aging risk, right? And that's kind of the idea of brain age. And we as a computer scientist, the brain age, how do you do that? How do you have a computer do what a radiologist would do when they say, that looks like a 50-year-old brain, it looks like a 66-year-old, It kind of played like the weight guessing game at the carnival, or how do you get a computer to do that? Well, that's machine learning, And that's where it's really a fun problem. What you do is you give the computer a whole bunch of examples of brains, of people's MRI. We take from a library, from all the different sites that have published their data. So we're all collaborate together, scientists in different places, and put data. After we take off, you'll sign this in the consent when you do a study. We won't send anyone's data without first removing anything identifiable. So even the face is removed from that MRI, so that nothing is there. But they get these big sets of brain images, and the ages of the person, and you fit the computer algorithm, the image and the age, and over and over and over, and it learns how to predict the age from the picture. It does like what that expert radiologist, and that's the machine. The algorithms are interesting, but I'm obviously not going to.
I'm glad Howard didn't, talk about all the math behind all this machine brain age around computation. But I have a question. So, females and males, do we have different risk for different diseases? How about the Alzheimer's disease?
I think that the simple answer is, of course, women have a higher risk of Alzheimer's because they live longer. And the longer you live, the more likely you are to get Alzheimer's. And that's, of course, true. And then going beyond that to try and understand, at the same age, do they have a greater or less risk? It's a little tricky because there's all sorts of survival biases and ways of correcting for it. I think the more interesting question, rather than thinking of it as a game of whose risk is higher or lower, is what do we know for sure? What we know for sure is they have a different risk architecture, meaning the way it plays out is different for men than for women. Women, the menopausal transition is a big event. Men don't have that event. you know. But then we have a sort of a very steady decline of testosterone. Women have a very big change. And that means, and a lot of our collaborators, close collaborators, and me, I guess we studied that in our data because that's something that maybe they can intervene and change the risk. But it's not that it's more for women than men or more for men than women, it's just different. And I think in medicine across the board we're trying to appreciate that. I could go on, but
yeah, but maybe I kind of want to move on to the next kind of maybe something. Let's focus on something we can do. Should we eat more spinach for our healthy brain or not? So what do we know about like spinach? Kale, sorry, kale. It has to be kale. So I just wonder if Howard can share with us what's the latest scientific evidence that something we can do to have healthy brain. So maybe we can focus on diet, exercise, sleep, hobbies, and social connectiveness, social connection.
Exactly. Healthy lifestyle, we all know it, and it's, even like the crossword puzzles and doing Sudoku or doing different games. People are like, should I do that? Should I have my loved one do that? And I say, look, if they're frustrated and it's annoying, don't do it. But if they're enjoying it, do it. If it's rewarding, that's what matters, And so I think part of what makes exercise beneficial isn't just the good to the cardiovascular, but it's also rewarding. You're making progress. You're engaging in the world, So anything rewarding that we kind of all kind of know our better angels, in the sense of kind of know what healthy and rewarding things are, and those tend to be good for the brain, yeah.
How about, so Pittsburgh has a big study about exercise and brain. So what do we know about exercise and brain? So do we get, hippocampus is the brain center for memory. So if you have shrink, like more, smaller hippocampus, you can store new memory. So can exercise make our hippocampus bigger?
Yes. You definitely can. It's pretty compelling. Kirk Erickson, who was faculty here for a number of years, has published a lot on this, and they've done a number of studies where they show there are some increases, in the volume of that brain region after sustained after an exercise regime compared to a group that's not doing it. Whenever I've looked at the data with those sorts of interventions, we see that there's an interaction. There's the people who didn't get the intervention, there's a normal aging decrease in volume. And the people who got the intervention, there's an increase in volume. And so it's a little bit of both, that it's preventing the age-related decline and perhaps increasing. It doesn't mean you're growing new neurons. A lot of people think it may be the increased activity and increased use. There may be more blood flow and more tissue, supportive tissue and synapses.
How about sleep? I know we love to sleep, probably everybody, right? Right? So is sleep good, or should we? How about sleeping? If sleep is so good, should we stay in bed to catch up sleep? Or what do we know? What's the latest science tell us about sleep?
That's wonderful. A wonderful question. Sleep is extremely important, and we see it. Poor sleep is associated with dementia. That's absolutely the case. We're studying it in terms of brain markers and understanding exactly what is it about poor sleep that does actually lead to amyloid increases. It's very clear. But it doesn't mean stay in bed all day so you can get as much sleep as you can. The funny thing is, sleep is best if you restrict the amount of time in bed. So a lot of times people who have sleep problems, the recommendation is kind of limit your time in bed, not increase your time in bed. It's kind of paradoxical, but that's what this. I'm not giving that as specific advice to anyone now, but I am. Although sleep is important, exactly what Akiko said. Don't stay in bed all day just so that you might get some sleep. One of our faculty, one of my mentees, Stephen Smagula, has a really interesting finding where he's convinced that early risers, getting up early and starting activities, is a really good indication of mental health, and that there's a really good sign in healthy aging. It seems a little arbitrary. Some people like to wake up slowly. Some people wake up fast, but he does see an association. Thank you.
So last two items, so what we can do. So how about hobbies? Is it important to have hobbies?
I think for the same reason as I was describing, doing rewarding activities and helping being engaged and healthy lifestyle. I think hobbies fit in with that.
So you already kind of described about pseudo and other things, but so yeah, sorry to repeat the question. But the last thing I kind of want to talk about is social connectiveness. So I'm a psychologist, so then this is my theme. So like people should be connected. That give us the power, give us the I don't know, good feelings too. So I think feeling connected to community, feeling connected to your friends, family, I think that's very important. So I think there's good evidence of especially intergenerational interaction is very important. So can you remember the last time you talked to a person who is not from your generation outside of your family? Okay, good. I see good. Lots of nodding. So that is really good. So like there's the scientist at Pitt at Department of Education. She studies about the benefits of intergenerational interaction. So people exchange different ideas from different opinions intergenerationally. Outside of the family, it's very, very stimulating, and you can learn new things, and you can share your experience, and then younger generations appreciate. So maybe, Brianna, can you introduce more about your experience?
Thank you for kind of leading into that. But about like a year and a half ago, myself and another student in Akiko started an intergenerational conversations class that we do every other week. We have a flyer up here, so that has more information on it, but we do it through a website called Virtual Senior Academy. It's just a Zoom class every other week, and we, there's people from all different generations, like students my age up to, a lot older adults, and we just talk about a lot of different things every week. It's really just like a range of topics, but it's really wonderful. It's probably my favorite thing to do with the lab, and it's not for research at all. It's just I work at the lab and do this. And so yeah, if you're interested, there's flyers. Everyone really seems to enjoy it whenever we go, and like Akiko said, it's really important to have some intergenerational conversations, and I cannot recommend it more. So it's great.
Thank you. So my daily life, I have first of all, I have 3 kids. I have 9, 7, and 3, and I have full-time job. Thank you. In addition, I served committee to Japanese school last year and this year, so I'm just so busy. So I love my life because of these amazing coworkers. But so after meetings and meetings, daily life, I just don't want to go to another meeting except this intergenerational conversation. Sometimes I feel like, oh, another meeting, I have to go. But like after the meeting, I just have more energy. It's just amazing experience. So like we exchange, like some of the topics we talked about so far was, for example, fashion. So I don't know, I feel like different generations have different expectations of how we, dress and how to dress up, dress down, and from across culture we have different expectations. So when you see younger people's fashion, do you have something you want to say?
Pull your pants up. Yeah.
Do you want to tell them about that? Yeah? And do you think they want to say something about your fashion? Yeah. So this is interesting because I learned a lot. So like older generation, have participants from older generations that we used to dress up everywhere. And I thought, yeah, that's true. Like, if I look at the pictures of my parents and grandparents, wow, they are dressed up all the time. But also, like, do you like this kind of casual you're allowed to be more casual? Like, do you like that now? Like, I don't know, like, just talk about something small, fashion, just generationally different ideas and experiences. That was very interesting too. So we have, again, we have a flyer here if you want to have more information. But maybe we should move on to your questions. So let's do that. Do you have here, we have more information about Howard before going to the questions. Do you have something?
I love the intergenerational dialogue too, even though I'm in the older group, I think, at this point. It's just really neat. I've learned a lot about people and myself. I'm a participant and I get to learn, and it's cool. It's a lot of fun. Thank you, Brianna. You do an awesome job leading it.
Okay, so now we have time to take a, yes, go ahead, please.
So you had mentioned there are factors that impact our brain age. Could you just review those again, and then if you can dive at least a little bit under the surface in each one to understand?
Sure. So, I think if I don't have the list of publications, but I would be able to predict very well based on the model of how I understand it, which seems to work here. So most everything associated with chronic stress and is associated with accelerated brain age. And all of those things are also associated with increased AD risk. So it's sort of a chronic stress and disadvantaged, impoverished.
AD meaning
Alzheimer's disease. So all of these things, anything that leads to kind of either, so I'll back up a little and I'll try and unpack what I just babbled off a little bit. There are a lot of factors that can lead to accelerated brain age. Your brain looking older than its age, than your chronological age. A lot of times when we say brain age, we're referring specifically to the gray matter of the brain. There's a lot of newer models that look at vascular aging and look at like white matter and are more subtle, and we're looking at those as well. But most of the brain age models look at they're atrophy-based model, looking at loss of brain matter and loss of cortical thickness, including hippocampal volume. Those are a lot of the brain age models. And in almost all of those, in all of these models, anything that leads to lower education for nutrition, zip codes, depending if you live in a low socioeconomic zip code, you'll have a higher brain age. It's really disturbing, a lot of the factors that go into it. And it has spurred a lot of interest in equity, medical equity, different aspects that go into it, because a lot of these factors, that allow people to thrive, people who are disadvantaged will get for stress, for diet, pollution, all of those things can be associated with greater brain age. I kind of went out a little bit, but did that make sense?
Yes.
So also I can add sleep, the quality of sleep, and then also having hobbies, something you can enjoy, and also like feeling connected to your community. So these are the other factors.
Can you expand a little bit on the diet? And there's probably as many
I know kale and then diet. I know that's something we can do. Yeah, so Howard, any antioxidants?
It's interesting. I mean, I think for diet, I would just say healthy lifestyle. I would say the same things you're going to do for heart health, do for brain health. I don't think there's really going to be a distinction. Yeah.
I have a question. Does intelligence affect brain age? Or, like if somebody reads a lot or is very, very educated, does that make their brain age, younger? Or?
Yeah. So, yes, and there's different constructs in psychology and aging where people sometimes talk about reserve, cognitive reserve and brain reserve. And they almost, in terms of the computer model, it's if you want to talk about the software or the hardware, and this distinction if doing more practice is building your software or is it building your brain itself to be stronger. And that you can, I think doing more reading and exercising is certainly something that's going to help build resilience and help build both that cognitive and brain reserve and be associated with a lower brain age in that sense. Please.
So education, like it's like a muscle. If you train your brain by reading and then doing something intellectually challenging things, to yourself, this is good. It's like muscle. So then, if you accumulate more amyloid, your brain will have more power to do something else, but outside of amyloid. So brain is so flexible. So then we can do if this area is affected, but if you have good muscle in your brain, like just analogy, you can use other parts. How to the brain can, one part of the brain is not doing one thing. The brain is connected. So then maybe you can start using different connections of the brain to do the things like you used to do. So then yes, please keep reading and do something you can enjoy. So
enjoying. That's what I was saying. If it's reading, if you're enjoying it, that's the best time. Finding things. I mean, it's often hard. It could be hard and challenging, but it's rewarding. Yeah.
I think we have a whole generation of young people with the drug and alcohol problems, and I guess my question is, if they continue on those kinds of paths, and obviously somewhere along the way they're going to maybe procreate, then are we going to find that our whole group of people, I mean a great many people, are going to end up having less and less and less brain capacity because they've already ruined their brains with the drug and alcohol issue? I guess what I'm saying is it's a public concern.
Right.
Health concern, public health concern. And how are we going to address that when we're going to have many, many young people that who are older people who are going to have all kinds of brain issues? You know what I mean? I don't know.
do.
I would imagine that this must be a very serious concern also.
Yeah, I think that the concern is just in general with the aging population. You know, that there's an increased number of people with dementia and Alzheimer's disease because it's mostly associated with age. And luckily, we live longer. You know, so it's a problem that's happened because of the success of medicine. And if people aren't getting dementia younger, they're getting it even a little older than they used to. So people are taking better care of themselves on a whole than they used to. They're living a lot longer, so there's a lot more dementia, a lot more Alzheimer's.
What should a family member do if they suspect that somebody might have dementia? What steps should they take to determine that?
Yeah, it's a wonderful question because it's so dependent and it's so individualized. You know what their concern is and why are they concerned? And are they concerned because maybe that person is living alone and they're not going to be well taken care of? Or are they concerned because the person's working and they have a job they're worried about or driving? Or are they concerned just because they're there playing poker with that person and they don't want to take advantage of them? You know, I mean, that one I'd say don't worry about. You're probably only playing for quarters and it's not going to make it. But it really depends on the situation, you know. And because the one thing is, it's a label, and labels are always challenging. And it can have a lot of meaning to people, you know, and they may not want to explore it because they don't want to get that label. You know, so even if they may need the help, there could be other challenges. It could be driving. People are worried if they get that label, someone will say they can't drive. So it's really hard, you know, and the best things to do are, you know, maybe talk to, if you have concerns, explore those specific concerns, you know, and maybe with that person, try and find a way of moving forward. Or talking to someone who knows them, who you're comfortable. It depends on the specific situation.
I would like to add a few things. So it's not direct answer to your question, but it's unfortunate, but it's so difficult to get medical care we need, especially a geriatric psychiatrist. If you know anybody in geriatric population and who has depression, things like that person feels, you know, things like they feeling like low and sad and maybe anxious too. It's so difficult to get the proper care, so access to psychiatrists who is specialized to treat these patients. So now we created this, so it's just a little bit of the advertisement, but we have this project called Great MH for mental health. So this is one-time consultation or with one of our psychiatrists. So you get the referral from PCP, primary care physicians, and then you can connect through your PCP. You can get the connection to this one-time consultation with psychiatrists. Even one time of the consultation with specialized psychiatrists will be tremendous information you can get because she's specialized in geriatric psychiatry. So if you know anybody who needs help, there's the brochure here we wrote. So please take it. Don't forget to take it. So sorry, I'm not directly answering to your question, but
that's a perfect answer. I mean, there's also the Alzheimer's Disease Research Center. They have a website, and they have and the PCP, the primary care physician.
How do you become a volunteer? How do you find people programs, 17 programs for the MRI and the study.
I don't know, like, with our studies.
Any participant, volunteers like participants who want to be scanned. It's a big part of what we do. That's what it's a challenge in doing research. It's not why we're here, but a lot of times.
Yeah, sorry, we are not here to.
We are not here.
We want to share.
We're here to share information.
Seriously, that's what we.
But we're always happy to. I mean, we are able to do our work because of wonderful volunteers like Jeanette, and we love, that's so helpful. And we're always looking for we have lots of different studies because we have lots of ideas that we'd like to explore.
So we have the number here. You can call and then email us. And then also, thank you so much for your question, because I know we as a researcher, we kind of tend to forget, but some people have some community has very, very bad experience of being research, subject. So, some labels of like, we are not, lab rats. Like we don't wanna, we don't wanna get tested. Like, I totally understand. Public has negative, feelings to research, but we really appreciate everybody's, all the participants' willingness to share their time and their passion to science, and we always appreciate. And so, thanks so much for your question.
Yes.
So, I was struck by your description very early on about you're not clinical, you don't take care of sick people, and you're all about research, and I think that's wonderful. However, why can't there be a relationship, like a direct, immediate relationship between the research you're doing and it reaching the public quicker or in a more lively way?
That's what we're trying. That's what we're pushing on with these different things. I feel it. I agree.
It would take a sea change in you, but...
No, we're trying. Every grant we write, we try and push it more that way.
Okay.
And that's exactly right.
Okay. I'm sorry, I have one more question.
No, please.
Sorry. So, do you have any data that says there is an increase in Alzheimer's or dementia in, I don't know, worldwide, America, or anything? Do you have any data that says it's going up?
So, yeah, and I can tell you what I know, and what I know to be the case. It's going up for sure because of the aging population.
Right.
And so there is an increased number. No, the question is, it's not just linear, because when you have, because partly the baby boom.
Yes.
And we're living longer. So it's more that there's a very big increase. The cohort effect, though, it's very interesting. If you look at people 65 to 75 and say, is the proportion of people with Alzheimer's disease 65 to 75 more or less than it was 50 years ago or 20 years ago? So are we getting it even earlier and faster? It's the opposite. Our public health is probably better.
That's good to know. Let's all celebrate that.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely right. It's like to take care of our heart. Right.
Also, I want to add one more thing. So, like, I know it's frustrating. So researchers and clinicians seem like they're working separately, not working together. But actually we are. So, for example, the leading psychiatrist, geriatric psychiatrist who's leading this one-time consultation, she used to be a researcher. She was doing peer research, but now she's a clinician and also doing research.
Great.
So also we are training lots of, next generation students. So like some people go to MD, PhD program, so they can have clinical license. Also, in-depth research training.
Well, you're going to be going to school for 40 years.
That's what we but that's what we need to do. We have to figure it out, and we have to make a good Right.
Excellent. Good to hear.
Yeah, thank you for your question.
I have a question. I find it fascinating about the brain age versus the body age. And in that diagnostic tool, does it ever show, or maybe in the loss, maybe how trauma would affect it, like PTSD or just even any kind of trauma?
I could say we have one study with Rebecca Thurston is the co-author on this one. It was in press recently about trauma, sexual trauma of women, including harassment, bias. It was a big scale. It was a study specifically of women's aging, because in our group we do the brain imaging part for a number of other collaborators, and she does work specializing on women's mental health. And we published recently showing that with that trauma, we didn't look specifically at brain age. I think it would affect brain age, but what we published is it affected vascular changes in the brain. So some white matter changes.
My second question is, since you've identified how chronic stress, impoverishment, alcoholism, diet, that kind of thing can affect our brain age, can our brain cells regenerate with positive risk? Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay.
In terms of, in different ways. I mean, Akiko brought up earlier about how the hippocampal volume can increase with exercise. Yeah.
Okay.
Some of the changes, like the white matter changes, seem to persist, but that doesn't mean that you can't find other ways around it.
So it's not too late to start eating kale.
You have a kale farm.
Is there a threshold at what time you have dementia, a threshold of when dementia is determined to be Alzheimer's?
That's a good question. So the distinction between dementia and Alzheimer's isn't so much of a severity. It's the cause and the path. So dementia is a more general term. So it's just like saying American. Whereas Alzheimer's dementia is a more specific type. It's like saying I'm a Pennsylvanian. Alzheimer's is a type of dementia. Dementia is more general. So dementia, people use dementia more generally, sometimes to include less severe, So it could be that. And there's not a threshold. Alzheimer's as a term, it's just a label referencing what we think is the underlying neuropathology. The main thing that matters in terms of the label is, what it means to the person, what it means to their family, unless you're looking for the label to get an idea if things are going to move more quickly or more slowly, So sometimes having the label can help because it's a disease that if it's called Alzheimer's, if I know it's Alzheimer's, then I know it's going to go at a different rate. Usually, once you're at that point, if you're going and saying, I'm wondering if it has Alzheimer's, because it's usually because things seem to be moving faster than you expect, And then probably it may continue to go with that rate, Having the label doesn't really necessarily change it that much. Is that helpful?